Everybody's talking about P&L performance, which is really great. And they're focusing on P&L, but they really need to stop that and go focus on where the inefficiency is. Because numbers will tell you one thing on a P&L, but if you go tactical and you go to your office, you could really figure out a lot of things very quickly.
Hey there, Dental Economist. If you're a dentist owner or a leader within a dental business thinking about growing production, case acceptance, patient and staff satisfaction, positive outcomes, and everything else that comes with running a dental business, then you're a dental economist, and you've come to the right place. Welcome to the Dental Economist Show. We're meeting at the intersection of profit and purpose as I sit down with dental leaders who share their stories about dentistry, business, and growth. Welcome back to the Dental Economist Show with me, Mike Huffaker. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Dee Fischer, the CEO of Fischer's Professional Group. Dee is a distinguished leader and mentor in the DSO industry, recognized for her significant contributions to dental practice growth and positive company culture. She's recently been awarded the 2023 Women in DSO Leadership Award for Business Excellence, reflecting her impact and dedication to the field. Welcome to the show, Dee. How are you doing today?
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to do this. There's so much happening in the dental world. I think there's a lot to talk about. Excited. Thanks for having me.
So to start and kind of kick it off, I just want to ask you just a broad question. Can you start to share a little bit about your background, your journey in dental, and really what inspired you to start Fischer's Professional Group?
So I was going to dental school, sort of getting in the dental field and doing things. And I quickly realized that I would never be a good dentist. I mean, that's just not going to happen. So I went over to business and did my business education and then just decided to put it all together. And my dad's best friend was a dentist. And I went in his office and I loved dentistry, but I loved the numbers. I loved everything was happening at the admin. And I realized really quickly I was able to fix them. Just looking at like people are not paying their bills, like little things. And I was young. So I said, you know what? I really love this and I'm going to do this. And I started to meet a lot of young dentists that at that time, the DSOs were starting to really get developed. They were going into the DSO world and it really intrigued me. And I'm like, I like this multi-office platform. I like the single office platform also. But like I said, it was just curiosity and curiosity killed the cat. It sucked me in, is what I tell everyone.
So you were in DSOs for many years, and then you ended up starting your own consultant firm. What kind of led to that? And talk a little bit about the areas that you focus on out there in the market today.
Sure. Well, after I got out of the DSO space a little bit, and then I started a design build company across the United States, we built a lot of great dental offices. And I started to realize that they were able to build dental offices, but they didn't know the systems and processes that had to go in to those dental offices. They had a beautiful office, but they were lacking at that side. So one of my first experience was I put together a dental plaza. It's actually still in Sebastian, Florida. And I put a general dentist, I put an endodontist, I put an ortho, and I put a pediatric dentist. I kind of put them all together. And it really exploded. It took off. We were doing well. We put the systems in. And we realized that if we train the dentist and we train the teammates in these systems, they were going to excel quickly. So I said, you know what? Maybe instead of building the offices, I should really teach how to really run the office efficiently. This way, these young dentists can get out of debt pretty quick. Because, we come out with a lot of debt from dental school. I mean, you look at the numbers, it's staggering. I just said, you know what? If I can help them that way, it might be better. And so that's what really encouraged me to do Fischer Professional Group. And I did my first, like I said, my plaza. And, true to be told, it turned out to this day, it's the number one practice in the area, if you look it up, and kind of under one roof. And people love it. So that's what really inspired me.
Yeah, I've heard you talk quite a few times now, and I know that you speak frequently about systems and workflows and about efficiencies. And as you're looking at kind of the landscape today, we're recording this already kind of entering the tail end of 2024, which is hard to believe. But as people are planning to end 2024 and looking towards 2025, with the groups that you've been consulting with, is there something that people should just stop doing that they are doing currently that you see happening kind of over and over again that you recommend? Well, first off, let's stop that. And can you share a little bit about what maybe some of those examples could be?
Everybody's talking about P&L performance, which is really great. And they're focusing on P&L, but they really need to stop that and go focus on where the inefficiency is. Because numbers will tell you one thing on a P&L, but if you go tactical and you go to your office, you could really figure out a lot of things very quickly. Let me give you an example. So we look at an AR and we're looking at, we have all this AR money out there, what's happening and showing up on the P&L. And I'm like, okay, we keep talking about the same number, but has anyone gone in and fixed the system? Why do we keep creating that number over and over? So I think sometimes you have to reverse engineer and say, okay, I looked at this P&L, I get that. We keep looking at it, but why is our supply cost still at 8%? Why don't we have operatory efficiency? Why is the schedule management still the way it is? So I keep telling people P&L performance is really key. But if you keep looking at the P&L and not finding out what the root of the problem is, that's where a disconnect's coming. And I see we've kind of gotten into those words. And lately is let's look at the P&L performance. Let's look at what it's telling us. But you have to really dig and you really have to do your due diligence to find out what is that story. And so I really don't see sometimes that happening as urgency as it should very quickly.
You're getting the focus on the outcome, which is the P&L, and not necessarily what the cause is of that. When you're first working with somebody, let's say they're challenged with same-store growth. That's been a hot topic this year. It's been discussed at many of the different conferences. Everyone's trying to focus on how you can grow within the practices that you own today. If somebody's struggling with that, let's say that this year they're down so far, where do you start? What's the first thing that you want to focus on to improve, or at least to understand to know where to improve?
So I'll give you an example on procurement. This is really an easy one. So I go into offices and I giggle a lot because I watch in the operatory the dental assistants, no fault to them because they're just doing what they've been told. They put their hand in the drawer and take out 10 cotton rolls. What are we going to do with 10 cotton rolls on an exam? So one thing that I know somebody that ran a very good organization was good at, they said on every patient exam, we only put 2 cotton rolls, 1 bib. They really laid out a template. This is what we put. It sounds crazy, but if you can save that cash, not spend $10,000 on all these cotton rolls, it's a significant impact. And then you look at, you say, okay, well, let me look at schedule management, which is a really big topic. That's one thing that I love about the software Demicon, that you guys who really focus on a scheduling technique that works really well. If you can shave off even 20 minutes a day, and you get that 20 minutes times the 5 days, that's an hour or more, right? And you could put a crown prep on your book every single week for 52 weeks times $1,000. That's $52,000. It's an easy fix. And sometimes we as humans, Mike, I think we make it more complicated than it has to be. And I think it's like you said, it's those little things that add up that make really a big difference. So for me, I'm looking at where's the root of the problem instead of coming up with really honestly writing a 10-page SOP. Can we give them an easy workflow? Can we say, instead of scheduling all these post-op visits that really are a $0 amount, can we do that by video chat at night? Can we send a video to our patients and say, hey, you had an extraction. This is like, and imagine, I just did this with an organization just this month, in fact, and they were able to cut down 30 post-op appointments at 15 minutes. And they were able to schedule production. Like I said, putting those things together that makes that same store growth come.
So when you explain it that way, it doesn't sound like from your perspective that we are experiencing a demand challenge. It sounds like there's maybe capacity constraints. It sounds like there's a production per visit challenge that practices are kind of navigating through. Do you agree with that? Or do you feel like there's a combination of both?
I think it could be a combination of both depending on the region. But I look at it this way, Mike. I really look at numbers and analytics. And I think back of when, we went through that whole thing with the real estate and everything crashed way back when, that's how old I am. My mindset is, you still have 70% of people that have dental insurance. There's 70% of the population that still has to come to the dentist, and only 35% or 40% are going in the door. So I don't think it's really, we don't have the need. We just have to figure out how to get them in the door and what that looks like. Because, like I said, there's plenty of people who have dental insurance, they want to use it. Are we truly training our staffs, and are we truly taking advantage of the things that like are in our practice management system software? So let me give you an example. I went in an office the other day and I was watching this young lady. She's clicking and I was like, can you explain to me what you're doing? Well, she was doing 25 clicks to get to an appointment. Because she didn't know you go right at the top and push this button, you get it. And I'm just like, okay, how much time can we save here? And she looked at me and she said, well, gosh, this is going to be so much easier. And in talking to her in the last week, I was talking to her and she said, it's so much easier to schedule a patient and schedule a family. I could get through it quicker. So she had the capacity, but she didn't have the system. And that system, it just took her back on so much not having efficient time to get done what she wanted to. And what's going to frustrate your staff but that?
Systems are so important. So I'd be curious your perspective on what you're seeing in the market related to system standardization. I think that most of the larger DSOs at this point are realizing that having everybody on a fragmented assortment of practice management systems within their organization really decreases their ability to be efficient, whether or not they are using a reporting layer that sits on top. And that actually using the same software across your entire organization can drive a lot of efficiencies. When you're working with emerging DSOs, is that the notion that they have, or is there a thought process that because maybe we're 4 or 5 or 8 or 12 offices now, it's okay, we can wait to do that standardization exercise later once we get kind of some of these other things figured out? What is your viewpoint on that, and what would you recommend to people?
I think it's changing. I think people are really understanding the tech stacks that are coming out and how things are being integrated. I think before it was like, yeah, it's okay if we have, 3 different softwares, but no more. And honestly, our younger providers that are coming out, they're really tech savvy and they like efficiencies. And I'm seeing across the board, how do we really get efficient? And it's better to use one system. And also on the team member side, it's great for retention. So I go into an office and I'm saying, and I have 4 offices that say, Susie, I need to go over here and work. They know they're working the same system and they're not frustrating their staff. And I think with the staffing shortage, it's brought it to light that we're better off having more standardization than we did before. So I see across the board, I have a lot of clients that are calling me and asking me, what should I look like? Where should I start? And I always tell them, what is the engine of your business? It's your practice management software. And, you're the quarterback, but that's the engine. And they're like, you're right. And I said, if that engine is humming and it's tuned up, it's going to do really fine. I said, and I want you to think about it. If you have 4 different systems, if your spark plugs aren't working and the one's not firing, what does that cost you? And they're like, you're absolutely right. But I do think our younger doctors coming out, and nothing against our older doctors, because they've done their thing and done wonderful, honestly, but they're starting to see, like, even when you hire someone like now, what do you think, they're asking, what technology do you have as an associate? They're asking, they're looking, how does this work? Is your staff trained? And right now, with the shortage that we're seeing and the retention problem, I think you have to be on your A game when it comes to practice management systems and your systems.
When you talk about these workflows, I don't know how you really drive consistency in your systems and workflows on inconsistent systems. If you have to do something in a different way with every single system to get the outcome that you desire, then you're by definition not consistent in your approach across your organization and practice. I mean, from the very beginning of what are you doing in the morning from a morning huddle, and what reports and information and data are you sharing with the team? Do you have a pre-built dashboard that allows you to easily walk through that? Or do you have an office manager that's having to pull 15 different reports from a bunch of different areas and pull them out and then try to do this morning huddle in a different way? So it seems kind of across the board as a real opportunity for efficiency.
Yeah. And I tell people all the time, one of the biggest things when I go in and I'm going to train the staff, I really engage them. And it's funny, I bring McDonald's Happy Kids meals to my first meeting all the time. Look at this company. They were able to build $1 billion company with teenagers. Why was that? They had consistent systems all the way across. And you had a teenager that could come in, and by the time they were saying their late 20s, they're managing. They're working their way up. So I would say this, they had something going for themselves. So I always tell them, I said, and I don't want you to take this wrong. I don't want you to be McDonald's of dentistry, but I want you to understand this. They know how to get a hamburger out in 2 minutes. They know how to get chicken nuggets out in 3 minutes. They know how to, customer care. They went through all those processes and it took a lot. But think about that. That all came from consistency and systems.
Do you see an area of a dental practice that is most neglected as it relates to consistency in systems? Is it operations and scheduling? Is it RCM? Is it clinical? Anywhere that is generally the area that needs the most attention as it relates to kind of doing an overhaul with SOPs and workflows and their systems?
Honestly, Mike, you would probably fall down, but it's the collection process. I have a tendency of putting people as patient advocates that are afraid to ask for money. Happens all the time. I go in an office and I'm just like, okay, you tell me about this. Oh, well, I don't think they have the money, or I don't want to insult them. I see across the board people in the wrong seat that are collecting the dollars. Happens all the time. And I told someone the other day, I said, the best people that collect money for me, that work as my treatment plan coordinators and or collection managers, are people that came from real estate. They know a big sale. They're not afraid of a sale. They're not afraid to ask for money. They really know customer service and they understand financing. So, I've been able in the shortage to really bring a lot of them in. And, my ploy was I ran an ad. Do you not want to work weekends and holidays? Call me. Kind of like that. And I had plenty of them that called me. But believe it or not, I see that. And again, that affects your RCM and that affects your whole financial department. Because if we're not collecting, a lot of times we know we're not doing it correctly. We're not looking at our RCM. We're not looking how we're creating the claim. Give you an instance. So you have someone that comes in and they decide, you know what, I'm going to really do this procedure, but I'm going to do it in two parts. But you might have an insurance company that says you can't submit that till you're actually done. So now we're holding up the claim, we're holding up the cash flow that's going to come in. And I don't think we train enough on what is free cash flow to the people that are collecting our money. When I hire someone that comes in, and everybody hears me say this, I'm on stage a lot. If someone's going to apply for my office as an office leader, I tell them there's two things that you need to understand. Number one, we have access to care. And the other thing, you just became a CEO of $1 million company. It's a whole different mindset. And they look at you and they're like, I'm a CEO. Well, yes, because you're collecting $1 million in here every year. So you are a CEO of $1 million company. And again, I go back to that's the number one change I can make immediately and look at it because you might have, and this is where it's confusing. So let's just say, oh, yes, I went in and I had 115% collection ratio. Okay. And I go back and I said, okay, so you pre-collected for cases or appointments for next month. But what did you actually collect from this month's production? And you look at it sometimes, it's 75%. But the number, everything's looking good. And that's why you really have to look at your system a lot of times and say, okay, I do have 115% collections, but 115% of what? So it's a barrier for me.
Yeah, explaining the why and why something is important is amazingly often overlooked. When it's so clear to you, the person that's providing direction on how to do something, you forget that oftentimes people don't really understand the why of the task. And it's definitely an easily overlooked part of coaching. Now, you mentioned something a minute ago about not working nights or weekends, but I do want to ask, at our Orbit event last year, dinner, we were chatting with a couple other leaders of DSOs, and you guys got into a conversation on opening up over the weekend, either on Saturday or on Sunday. What is the ingredients of what should be going on within a practice that should cause them to consider whether or not they should extend hours or bring on an associate that can cover different times over the weekend and start to explore that as an option if right now, say they're only open Monday through Friday or even Monday through Thursday, and they're having some challenges with their business?
So if I look at it regionally, I'll give you an example. I have an office in Florida, and I'll tell you that Sunday's their biggest day. A lot of times, I look at Fridays and I say, moms are taking their kids to events, doing all kinds of things. And I really think you have to look at what's really productive. The other thing I look at is on the staffing market. Like you have a lot of single moms that can work on a Sunday because they have free daycare. They have a spouse that's in there and we pay them a little more and they're happy to come in on a Sunday. Now, if you look at how many teeth break on Sunday and how many people are not doing anything on Sunday, we just assume they are. And I can tell you, sounds crazy enough, but it's one of the biggest days in dental because nobody's open. And you don't have to have every office open. Let's just say you have 4 or 5 offices. You choose one office a month. It's amazing what comes through that door. And again, I go back to on the retention side, we have a lot of female doctors that now are in our industry, would love to work on a Sunday. They could work 1 or 2 or 3 Sundays a month and make an income and still stay with their children. It works out well. And the same with a mom. She could go to the dentist or a dad, they could go to a dentist. So we find a lot of times, especially teachers, caregivers, they're all available during that time. And it's sort of like we're not fighting to fill our books from 10 to 2. And a lot of times we have to love off a day during the week. And we just never ask. And it's again, I go back to as humans, we develop habits. And when I go in and I look at a practice, I'll say to them, okay, let's look at this. Let's look at your calls. We're looking at your calls. The maximum number of calls come in between 6 and 8. Why don't we have someone answer the phone between 6 and 8? Or you look at people are requesting not Fridays. They're not requesting Tuesdays. Why is that maybe a large case day? So I think just really putting the pieces of the puzzle together. But I will tell you, across the country, people think Saturdays is a really strong day. I can tell you Sundays are even stronger from what I've seen from my perspective. And it's something that I think in the new world, and the way things are happening, especially post pandemic, we need to open our minds to.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's the least amount of supply on Sundays, right? That is a still relative rarity for a dental practice to be open. I like your question. Well, how many teeth break on a Sunday? Probably the same amount that happen on a Tuesday, Thursday, or any other day of the week, maybe more because all the kids are at home doing whatever. But yeah, I think it's interesting. I personally would love to have more access on the weekend. I end up rescheduling my dental appointments constantly because they're always scheduled during the week. And then something comes up. And then at 3 days before, it's no work trip, got to reschedule. It's very frustrating. But you were talking about retention and staffing. Would you suggest you don't even necessarily have to have the same staff that you have that's working full time during the week? You can almost staff your practice differently. You could find a different doctor, only wants to work part time. So you have the facility, you're paying rent for it anyways, and it just seems like that's a value add or an opportunity to serve more patients in your community.
I have a practice actually in Alabama, and we have the A team and the B team. And the A team, they work 3 days a week, and the B team works 4 days a week. The next week, they switch off. One works 4, one works 3, different hours. The reason why we've done that, we realize that the A team starts at from 9 and goes to 5. The next week, they're starting 8 to 3. It gives them a lot of versatility in their lives. And we found we're not missing any production because we have the A team going or the B team. You can still do the same thing on weekends. But I just think it's time now for all of us to say, how do we really get through this? People are starting to come back to work. I'm seeing that. But how do we get through this shortage and what does it really look like? Because our customer, now their lives have changed since the post pandemic. It's different, in my soapbox, as I say, what's worked yesterday might not work today. And you have to really be able to make those moves, especially if you want to grow and get to the next level. I'll give you an example. We're talking to someone, and this is in your field, we're talking to someone about practice management system. And they've been using this practice management system for 20 years and they feel really comfortable with it. And the young people are coming in and they're like, I haven't seen that ever. And they're like, what is that? And we have other people coming in and like, could you please tell them to change? That's from like 1940s. But the staff, like I said, just looks at and says, this is not for me. And when you're interviewing, they're looking at, they're like, I never even saw that practice management system. And then you look at the cost of training it and what you're doing, what that time's going to take. So yes, you might be getting a deal on your practice management system for $99 a month, but it's costing you retention, training, time, and efficiency. A lot of times people just overlook that.
So there's a term for that, which is reasoning by analogy, which is whatever happened before is not necessarily going to get us where we need to go. And I love that. I think that's an important thing. All the best people in business that, from a growth perspective, that are always looking to kind of move the needle and do things, are doing things differently. You can't just rely on what had worked for you previously. The practice management example is a good one. I think many people are still using solutions that were made so many years ago that were really just kind of designed to turn dental digital. And they didn't do anything beyond that. And now you have to kind of create this ecosystem around them for them to function as you would desire. Whereas the kind of modern solutions that are out there, particularly the cloud solutions in the market, really designed to help you run your business, not just allow you to run your business.
Well, I go back to the statement where I remember, like my first office I walked in, they told me they were paperless because they got this computer. I'm like, there's more paper in here than I've ever seen. And going on technologies, we're seeing so much. You're seeing the API platforms. One thing that I love that you guys are doing is a lot of the integration, what's happening. We're in such a tough age, meaning that with all the hacking that's going on, securities that we're going to need. And, for me, I love to see platforms where we're not clicking out of 8 things to get into one thing. We're really staying more secure. I love technology stacks that really talk to each other. So we're seeing more and more of the providers, the DSOs asking us, as consultants, what are you seeing? How is that working? I tell them all the time, if you can be efficient, even with clicks, let's just look at clicks. I did this study a while ago and they said, okay, in an hour, if we have a scheduler and they're doing 10,000 clicks, let's just say, in your practice management system, you can do 6,000 clicks And in that 6,000 clicks, you're only clicking out 500 times to go to another platform. On the 10,000, you're going out 100 times over and over, and it's so inefficient. So for me, the technologies that I see that are working is where we're integrating. And I love that you guys are a forward-thinking company. That's really important to you because it's going to be the way of the future, Mike. I see even, the small DSOs, they're getting concerned about people going in and out. What does this all look like? Why are they clicking out 8 times for this? What are they doing? So I think your technology stack is going to be extremely crucial in the next year.
Yeah, the way that it integrates and ties together and does so in a secure and safe fashion is also very important, especially as you're a group and you're scaling. There's a lot of user management that you then have to do across multiple platforms, and there's a lot of challenges that are associated with that. Separate from the ability to integrate, the ability to stay up to date with the latest technologies and allow access to use those, is there anything in particular, anything you've seen AI or analytics or just kind of anything in general that you think is pretty exciting that people maybe should take a look at that could help really build efficiencies within their practice?
It's the craziest thing. And I tell people all the time, they laughed at me when I just spoke to this. So I saw a DSO come up to the front desk and said, I want you to write me several workflows and I want you to write me 3 SOPs for this. There's the girl typing away. And I said, did you ever hear of Chat GPT? Copilots use it. Even the basics are putting us ahead because we can say, okay, let's put something in that. Could be Copilot, whatever you want. But really where the key came in, I said to the owners, there were 4 owners, I said, now that you did that, or you can make a quiz out of what you just put together. You could give a quiz to your staff and say, okay, do they understand? And they were just looking at me like I was like a genius. I'm like, no, it's not genius. I said, do you know you can record a meeting and you can come up with a quiz from the recording of the meeting? They were like, so honestly, right now, what I'm going to tell you, because dentists are scientists, they know clinical, they're in the mouth and they're owners. But again, I'm going to go down and say, at the office level, these are the people that are working. And if you can give them a basic Chat GPT to accomplish things, they'll just think it's genius. So I'm seeing using that more across the boards and the practices is saving a lot of time. Like I had the other day, someone wanted a script on why we don't go fees out. And I said, let's go into Chat GPT. They said, I love this. Part was really good. I'd have to sit there and write it. Otherwise, we would have been paying a team member a lot of dollars to create something over a week that was totally inefficient.
It's another example of where we talk about AI so much, but it's still so early from an adoption perspective. And you have these tools like ChatGPT that are out there, Copilot or Gemini is with the rebranded Bard for Google that can do a lot of really cool things. And I think it's still intimidating for people to use, even though once you do start using it, you recognize how intuitive it is. Let me ask you this, we're hearing a lot of conversation about the economy softening, about some challenges that are happening within dental. We know interest rates are high. You've been around for just a couple of years now, so you've seen a few things in the industry and maybe weathered some previous storms. When you kind of reflect back on maybe it was 2008, for example, where there was the housing bubble that happened, or the early 2000s with the dot-com burst. And when you have these challenges, if you could kind of go back and think, if you knew that they were happening beforehand, what are the things that you would have done to kind of prepare or shield or defend yourself from the worst parts of it? What would that advice be today?
Number one is it goes back to your free cash flow. Have a savings, have your free cash flow. We saw that during COVID, have a free cash flow. And the biggest thing is what I can tell you is the offices and the DSOs that didn't listen to the noise, the sky's falling, they just did their daily business every day. And when they focused on day to day, did we get through the day? Did we achieve our goals? They focused on the wins. They were the ones that won. Instead of seeing no opportunity, they saw a lot of opportunity. And when you look at that and say, you know what, yes, I understand that, people might think there's challenges. There's challenges every day in life. But if you have a little bit of free cash flow put away, maybe 2 months of operating, whatever it may be, and then you say, I'm going to focus on my daily goals every single day instead of letting the noise in, it gives you a whole different focus. And I'll give an example. I talked to a young dentist this weekend and he did an acquisition and he's low on cash flow. And we went through all these things. And all he kept telling me is, they say, the interest rates are going to be high. They say, we're going to have an economic downturn, whatever. And I said to him, son, You're young. Are you still seeing patients? Yes. Do you still have money in the bank? Yes. Get out of the noise. And I think that's the biggest thing that I would tell people is nobody can predict the future. But I can tell you, and I've had this conversation with some of the marketers many times, it's we need to understand at the office level that we have people that are running our offices that are hearing a lot of noise. How do you get that noise out of their head? You have to change the loop. And how do you do that? By having efficiencies, having great morning huddles. Don't focus on the down. You have to focus on the upside. And I think that's the biggest thing I tell anybody is don't get in that the sky's falling.
Yes, great advice. When you are looking at the industry in general and kind of grab your crystal ball for a second, what are the things that you're most excited about moving forward? Like, where do you think these are some really great things happening in dental that really kind of give me a positive outlook on where we're going in the future?
So the first thing is what I think there has been a correction that people realize that now when they're going to purchase an office, they have to be in a better place financially. I think what's happened is we're not just buying to buy anymore, which I love because it makes my life a lot easier. That might be selfish, but it's true. And so I think we've learned a lesson. Don't buy just to buy. And now what excites me is we're seeing healthier P&Ls. You are seeing it. You're saying, okay, yeah, you know what? Before I jump off and buy my 25th office, I have more of a healthy P&L. And I think we're really starting to look at more tactically about what's happening. And then also what is exciting to me is our young providers coming out. I love that they're tech savvy. I love that they're looking at metrics. I'll be honest with you, my husband graduated. He's a doctor. He didn't look at metrics. He looked at crown preps. So now we're starting to see that blend in our providers. I love it. I love that I have a dentist that comes out and says, did I hit my goal today? Did I hit my metrics? Did I do the right thing? And yet they understand access to care. So to me, it's an exciting time. And I just love the fact that they're really doing due diligence now before they go purchase an office, which is a good thing for their business. And also they're understanding their metrics.
You have a lot of experience, and yet you are still very much always looking to kind of keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on. What is your strategy for continual learning? How do you stay up to date on the industry and not just kind of rely on what you had done before to hopefully be what you need to do in the future?
I listen to the experts that's out there. The experts to me are the people that are working at the office level and the executive teams. I really listen to them, and you find a trend. And I would say trends are your friends. Right? You find a trend. And so if I see something like, for instance, on procurement, I go to the experts myself. I'll ask them, I say, no, tell me what you're seeing. What do you think about this? How can we make it better? I always tell people, I like to talk to people that are smarter than me. And there's plenty of them. And I go in there and say, okay, we're having an issue, like I said, a practice management software issue. It's a training issue. Well, do I have an expert that, is on Denticon that can get on and train them? Because I'm not the expert. And I think the way that I stay ahead of the curve is that self-awareness. Sometimes people, I think we tend to say, hey, I'm really good at that. I really can handle it. And it's okay, Mike. I say this all the time. I hand things off to other consultants. You have seen me. I've done workshops with other consultants. I don't see it as competition. I see it as compliment. And I think if you can have that type of mindset, you're always learning and you're always coachable. That's what keeps everything relevant for me.
That's fantastic. And I think that is a great note to end this conversation on. Dee, how can people find you? Do you have socials, LinkedIn, website?
LinkedIn or website, either one. A lot of people find me on LinkedIn, and some people, find me on my website. But I always tell people all the time, reach out to me. I'm the type that's going to answer a question. I'm not the type that's going to say, charge you for every little thing, because I think as a human, we should always do the right thing. But they could reach out to me on LinkedIn with a question. They can reach out to my website, and I'll be glad always to, take that 5 minutes to answer them.
That's awesome. I've seen that firsthand and definitely appreciate it and appreciate your generosity with your time. So thank you very much. Really enjoyed the conversation, Dee, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
The Dental Economist Show is brought to you by Planet DDS. To find out more about how cloud-based dental software by Planet DDS helps unleash dentists and their staff to focus on patient care, visit www.planetdds.com. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes by following wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening.